Hello and welcome back to the Balance Training and Coaching YouTube channel. My name is Kurt and it's good to see you. I wanted to run this video on language because, as I've mentioned in other videos, quite often in work scenarios, when people are considering something that they're finding challenging or extremely important, very often it eventually comes down to the language. Clearly, of course, body language, deportment, eye contact, tonal delivery, timing, etc., etc., are all very important, and there are many other contextual factors that you can consider. By the way, on that note, I do have another video titled Context, if you would like to see that. It's a short video just clarifying what I mean by contextual considerations. So, language, yeah, it eventually comes down to this very much most of the time, and therefore I am approached considerably, as I've said, by staff saying, look, I know what I want to say, that's not really the issue, it's how I say it. Therefore this short video is to give you a chance to consider one facet of language when you're speaking. Now, before I show you something, if you wish, you can pause the camera now. Now, why I'm asking you to do that? Well, it can be quite a good test sometimes to either say out loud what it is you're thinking of saying first, or to write it down on a piece of paper verbatim, word for word, and just see what comes out first in that sense. So if you wish, pause the camera now, and then either say or write this thing that you're thinking of saying to another person or persons at work. When you've finished, click play of course, and then I'll show you this, and you can then compare this with what you've said or written and see how it connects. Alright, so if you've just paused the camera and now press play again, welcome back. If you haven't, well, you're still here, so welcome anyway. So yeah, let's have a look. I want to show you three particular features of language, or position, if you want to call it that you can consider. And the first one is strengthening. This is an R, okay, so strengthening. Sometimes there is an opportunity to what I call strengthen what you're saying. And by way of example, let me show you this prefix. It's quite common in the workplace, and particularly in British, particularly English culture as well. Therefore, a very common prefix is the prefix I think. I think this, I think that, I think you should do this, I think we should do that. And of course, as you're aware, I'm sure, there are lots of contexts where that is very appropriate and very useful, very helpful. Now, one of the things that I want to point out is that sometimes in some contexts, so just some, not all, this prefix is not appropriate. And the reason why is because it can seemingly weaken what you're saying. It can weaken the impact or the import of what you're saying. An example that I'm given a lot is when, for example, a manager says to a member of staff, I think it would be a good idea if you did X, when actually the message needs to be, you need to do X. Therefore, in some contexts, that is a weak prefix. Therefore, of course, it begs the question, what is stronger or a bit stronger than I think? Well, many examples, scores, if not hundreds of examples. But here's an example of something that might be a bit stronger, perhaps. I'm aware of. So I think you could possibly counter-argue with conjecture. Well, I understand that you think that, however, on the other side of the coin, I'm finding that ... Whereas if you'd say perhaps, well, I'm aware of the fact that this hasn't been done and we need to get it sorted out. It could potentially be a bit stronger. That said, we can improve on it. So let's have a look. I can assure you, and hopefully you can see or hear how that is beginning to read, if you like, as stronger than the prefix I think in certain contexts. You know, I can assure you this deadline is going to be missed if we don't do X, or I can assure you that will be done. So better, of course. I believe, compared to I think, I believe can often be much stronger as a phrase, whether it's written or spoken. Clearly, of course, if you're speaking these lines, what's extremely important is your body language and eye contact, as well as tonal delivery. There's no point in saying, oh, I believe it would be a good idea. That your whole, of course, deportment and eye contact and tonal delivery and perhaps conviction behind the words is not supporting the language. So yes, I believe can be much stronger. And if you think about it, the men and women around the world who were very famous leaders, for example, and gave hallmark speeches, they don't often say at key moments, I think it would be a good idea if I led your country. No, it tends to be, I believe, you know. So, one more example. Possibly, arguably, the strongest or one of the strongest statements, you know. I know, you know. I know it's going to work. I know it has to be done. I know that there has been a mistake. I know that if we don't go there, there are going to be problems. And you can see in comparison to I think that in certain contexts again, I know is infinitely stronger. So one thing you can consider, if you wish, is the strength in this sense of your language. Does it sound a bit weak or does it sound strong? What's the impact of your language? Is it coming across with a certain conviction or force, or does the language betray a certain passivity or indecisiveness in what you're saying? Okay, strengthening. Number 2. Number 2 is experience. Now, in some work contexts, as I believe you know, you are trying to influence people or persuade them or maybe motivate them, maybe even negotiate or mediate as well. And sometimes, as you know, it can be difficult to do those very things, to achieve them successfully. And as a consequence, you find yourself having discussions or debates or arguments. Therefore, it can be very helpful to have something else to use to strengthen what we're saying. And therefore, in addition to actual language, e.g. prefixes like these, you can also work with what I call experience. So let me show you what I mean by this.